Tandem HR.
Exceptional workplaces.
Exceptional people.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tom Fiegel, and welcome to Tandem HR's fourth quarter webinar, Creating a Unique Culture. We're glad to have you this morning to talk about what I think is the most common characteristics of a successful, enduring company, and that is their culture. Now, before we get started, I will let you know that if you have any questions as we go along, you can submit them to the chat box, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. So in my 20-year career as an HR consultant, I've had the great opportunity to work with many different companies and industries and have observed firsthand some healthy cultures and some not so healthy cultures. So this morning I will share with you not only the best textbook practices of creating a unique culture, but also what I have learned and seen personally in my travels. So every company, from small businesses to large corporations, has a culture. This culture that every company has can either work for the company and help fuel its success, or can be very damaging and ultimately cause the company to fail. The successful companies know that there is more to just creating a business plan to solving the company's problems or setting the company's direction. They know that without the support and the buy-in from their employees, that these plans will fail. So to capture the hearts and minds of their employees and help them achieve their business plan, they create a unique and healthy work culture. And the most common characteristic of a healthy company culture is the values that guide them and have them act and guide them behave in any situation. So first, before we get into determining and creating our unique culture, I think it's important to provide a definition of what we mean by the term culture. The term culture was first used way back in the Roman times by the orator Cicero to mean the cultivation of the soul. In modern times, anthropologists have used this term to describe the behaviors, qualities, and unique characteristics of any group of people. Now, defining work culture can be difficult as it is usually thought of something that is abstract and really hard to visualize. A common textbook definition for work culture is the set of beliefs, values, and norms shared by organizational members. But I'd like to describe work culture in a different way. So let's say that you and I started business together. Beginning on the first day, you and I will develop particular ways of handling the work and how we are going to behave towards one another. We may not even be aware, but over time, they will gradually become our acceptable way of doing things. So now let's say we brought in some business, and now you and I have to start hiring some employees, which is a good thing. Right from the beginning, these employees will observe how you and I interact and how we get things done. These employees will repeat our habits, and gradually they become our company's acceptable, safe way of doing things. In other words, these become our company habits. So I like to define workplace culture as the habits that have grown over time and define how things get done around here. Although these habits may not be completely visible, they are reflected in the actions taken by you and I and our employees. So now the approach we just described that you and I are taking would be considered an unstructured approach to creating our culture. Hopefully the habits we formed are productive and inspire our people to believe in our business and allow us to be successful in the long term. But what if it doesn't turn out that way? The alternative to hoping it all works out is for us to deliberately from the beginning create the guidelines that will determine how we work together and how we will get things done. This would be considered the structured approach to creating our culture. A structured approach to creating a culture has been shown to increase the probability that our company will be successful not just for a couple of years or when the demand is high for our product, but also when times are tough and we are going through changes. So this structured approach to creating a unique culture is what we will be talking about today. So let's talk about how culture is tied to business success. Cultures that place a high value on its employees at all levels assure that there is an extensive employee interaction across all levels and treat all employees equally and with respect are known to get positive business results. And there are 4 particular business results I would like to discuss a little bit further. Number 1, positive, healthy cultures have good employee retention. In a company that values workers for their contributions to the business, employees experience high morale and a positive attitude towards the organization. Workers with a positive attitude are loyal to the organization, which reduces employee turnover. Worker turnover has a high cost to the business with increased costs for recruitment, hiring, and training. A healthy corporate culture can help retain valuable employees and reduce expensive administrative and human resource costs. Secondly, reputation. Companies with a healthy corporate culture gain a positive reputation among potential employees, which may attract talented and skilled workers to our organization. In addition to attracting high-quality workers, a well-regarded business reputation allows the company to charge a higher price for the products and services and increases the value of the company in the financial market. Customers may prefer to conduct business with a solid corporate reputation as well. Thirdly, productivity. The improved morale of workers in a company with a healthy corporate culture increases productivity. When workers increase productivity, the financial health of the organization improves and profits increase. Increases in productivity are a measure that illustrates efficiencies and effectiveness in the company. Employees can benefit from this increase in productivity with higher salaries and better benefit programs. And lastly, successful businesses have better quality. A healthy corporate culture encourages workers to consistently deliver a high-quality product and service. Companies with cultures valuing the highest standards create an atmosphere for workers to deliver the products that meet those high standards. The cultural standards for excellence are an important factor for creating a product or service with a reputation for high quality. So let's go back to the example that you and I, starting the business. If we both agree it's better for our company to take a proactive approach and build a deliberate company culture, what would it look like? What are the things that we should do? As stated before, I've had the great opportunity to observe the habits of hundreds of different companies in my career, and I believe most of these habits that demonstrate company culture can be broken down into 4 categories. Number 1, communications, empowerment, behaviors, and management style. So let's go through these 4 categories and see how companies demonstrate their culture. Number 1, under communications, high-performing cultures or healthy company cultures, the people go to the person they have an issue with or a problem with first before talking to others. In weak company cultures, people talk to others about a problem they have with somebody or a coworker rather than the person themselves. And we may have all experienced this situation, and when this happens, 2 things happen. Number 1, in high-performing cultures, when people address the issues with themselves, they develop trust in one another and they continue to grow and develop their working relationships. In a weak culture, when people are talking about someone behind their back, it is very destructive and causes distrust in the organization. Another way culture is demonstrated is in any changes that will impact another person. High-performing cultures think of who will be impacted by the change and will notify them beforehand. Conversely, in weak cultures, they'll make changes that affect people without telling them, and as we all know, when we experience this, it leads to a lot of frustration to the person who didn't know about the change and is caught off guard when they become aware of it. Also, high-performing cultures share information. they think of who could use the information, any information, to be effective in their job. Weak cultures, on the other hand, keep information to themselves and are not willing to share it and hoard information for themselves. Also, company cultures demonstrate themselves in what is acceptable response time. So a high-performing culture, every employee promptly responds to all internal and external requests or any type of communications, usually within 24 hours. In weak cultures, the companies allow people to respond to an email or a voicemail or anybody's request whenever they want, or sometimes not at all. Secondly, high-performing cultures and cultures can demonstrate themselves with empowerment. And empowerment goes a long way to developing the rich culture that successful companies all have. So under empowerment, delegation is very important. High-performing cultures provide opportunities for people to grow by giving them challenges and are not afraid to extend the leash a little bit to allow them to learn, and sometimes they may make mistakes, but most importantly, they are allowing their employees to learn. In weak cultures, they feel it's better to do it themselves so it gets done right the first time. Also, decision making. Allowing the people who do the work to decide how it will get done is very important for high-performing cultures. In weak cultures, usually it's only the management that make all the decision on how the work is going to get done. Risk-taking. High-performing cultures allow people to take calculated risks, fail, and learn from their mistakes. In weak cultures, they feel that taking risks is way too dangerous. And lastly, under empowerment, accountability. High-performing cultures make all people accountable for their performance and their behavior. In weak cultures, they allow bad employees with bad behaviors to stay employed. Thirdly, let's talk about company behaviors. I think it's interesting to note that high-performing cultures have a certain way that they are looking at the customer. They understand that we wouldn't be here if it weren't for the customer. And conversely, weak company cultures, you'll see that employees will talk about the customer and treat the customer like they are a bother. And also under behaviors, it's interesting to see and note that healthy cultures demonstrate themselves with a lot of courtesy and cooperation. In other words, people treat each other with respect at all times. Conversely, in weak cultures, people are rude and impolite to each other. So, lastly, another way that company culture demonstrates and displays itself is in the management style that the company has. So first off, got my back. In high-performing cultures, managers do not throw their employees or their peers under the bus. In weak cultures, managers act in their own self-interest by focusing on and protecting and promoting themselves and doing what's best only for themselves. Secondly, visibility. In high-performing cultures, managers make their presence known and are not afraid to help their staff when needed. In weak cultures, managers rarely come out of their office and are not visible at all. Also, double standards. In high-performing cultures, there are no double standards. Managers hold themselves to the same standards that they expect and have for their staff. In weak cultures, you'll see this displayed as do as I say, the do as I say, not as I do philosophy. And lastly, good cultures with good managers understand and place a high priority on training and development. They provide the resources and the training so that people can effectively do their jobs not only for today, but for tomorrow. In we cultures, they do not place the emphasis on trading and expect people to figure out on their own. So, before we continue, I'd like to take a quick poll and ask you to let us know if you think your company demonstrates more than 50% of the time the aspects of the high-performing cultures that we just discussed. So we'll give you a couple minutes to provide us your responses. Okay, so the results are in. So it's good to see that more than 50% of us out there believe that their company, is displaying and demonstrating the characteristics of high-performing cultures. That's good to know. The 43% that said that does not happen, as we go through the remaining of the webinar, I'm sure there'll be some things that you will see in there that would be helpful and that maybe you can implement or think about providing in your workplace. So now that we've talked about what culture looks and feels like, let's take a look at a couple of examples of how some well-known companies that have linked their cultures to delivering distinctive value to customers and how successful they are. Number one, Southwest. Southwest is one of the most admired companies in the country, respected in the industry that's better known for delayed in flights and bad customer service than great corporate culture. Not to mention the fact that it's remained profitable in a sector that rarely is. One of the reasons for this is that the founder, Herb Kelleher, who put an enormous amount of emphasis on culture and the customer experience, something that's persisted even after he stepped down as the CEO. So naturally, throughout the time at the helm, and even now, companies wanted to know what is their formula, what is the secret behind Southwest's culture and its success. In an interview with Fortune magazine, Herb Kelleher described it this way: it's not formulaic. The way I describe it is this huge mosaic that you're always adding little pieces to make it work. And it's not just a job that you do for 6 months and then just say, well, that's behind us. It's something that you do every day. And secondly, Google. We all know who Google is, and they are not only one of the fastest and most useful web search engines around, they're also one of the top 100 companies to work for, according to Fortune 100 magazine. Google's organizational culture is very strong. They hire people that embody their company values and feel the same intense desire for unlimited amounts of information. This desire allows the company's employees to work towards the same goals and intensifies the bonds that they share. As a result, Google has a low turnover rate and receives over 1,300 applications a day. Google's culture is a combination of things. It's an ethical, customer responsive, and spiritual. Google encourages employees to be creative in problem solving, which sometimes calls for risk taking. The Google employees also have a sense of team instead of self, so this encourages them to work together to achieve goals rather than compete against each other. This also prevents unethical behavior. Google's low formalization and service-oriented employees work to be customer responsive. They understand that thinking outside the box is what they are known for, so they go above and beyond what others would do to satisfy a customer's need while maintaining their company values. So now that we know what company culture looks like, let's give you some tools that will help you create your own unique culture. We will go through each one of these in more detail, but I believe there are 4 main steps that should be taken to create a unique culture. And they are, number 1, understanding your core business, understanding and knowing what you do that cannot be replicated by your competition. Number 3, assessing your current culture. And lastly, creating values. So first, it's important to remember your core business and your industry before we start creating our company culture. This will play a big part in determining what type of culture is best suited for our company. For example, a company that manufactures a product like shoes or an automobile part, there will be a lot of value placed on the processes that go along with creating that product, so the customer gets the same high quality product every time and at a cost that they are willing to pay. So if the customers value a low cost, consistent, quality product, the company's culture should encourage and reward its employees for doing these things well. On the other hand, if your business is in the service industry, then your customers will place a high value on the ability to respond and resolve to any complaints or problems as quickly and as professionally as possible. So in this example, we want to create a culture that encourages and rewards the people responding and resolving to the customer's complaints as quickly and as professional as possible. So we want to reinforce what is most important to our customers. Next, step 2 is to determine and understand what it is that you do differently than your competition. What is it that you do every day that holds you out as different from the rest and cannot be replicated? This will make up part of your company advantage and should be leveraged. For example, does your team seem to naturally collaborate well, or do you have an exceptional learning environment where people spend time learning from each other's experiences? Does your team seem to be constantly finding innovative ways to create a product or provide a better customer experience? These things should be leveraged and should be part of the company culture. So now that we understand our core business and our internal strengths and what sets us apart from the competition, we can now create the programs and strategies that will develop, reward, recognize, and promote these attributes that hold you above the rest. So this becomes part of our culture, and we should never shift away from it. So now that we understand what our core business is and what differentiates us from the competition, we want to take a look and assess our current culture. And there are 3 common ways that you can get a picture of your current culture. Number 1 is by observation. An impartial observer of your culture, be an impartial observer of your culture in action. Observe how people interact and communicate with each other. Watch for emotions. People will get excited and upset about things that they care about and that are important to them, and this is reflective of your culture. Secondly, you can interview your staff in small groups, and while you're doing this, pay attention to the behaviors and how they interact with each other. Since we know it's difficult for people to describe culture, ask them open-ended questions like, what is the one thing you would change about our company? Or what is your favorite characteristic that is present in our company? Another way to get feedback on your current culture is to distribute surveys to your employees, customers, and vendors. It is best to use the information you gathered from your observations and interviews to create these surveys. So these are the 3 ways you can observe and understand your company culture. The results of this assessment will tell you what you should do more of, what you should do less of, what you should stop doing, or what you should start doing. So now that we understand our core business, what our differentiators, and understand what company culture looks like, we are ready to create our company values. Values are the glue that steer and drive every company in good times and bad. So another way of looking at it is, obviously you cannot be there every time to assist an employee when they need to quickly decide how to behave in a situation. So how will they go about determining this? Well, in these situations, people will go to what they believe and what they have observed to be the acceptable way to behave and respond. In other words, they're going to be drawing on your company values. So a simple way to define company values is that they serve as a compass for actions, describe what is important to us, and describe how we should behave. At the core of every strong corporate culture is a strong standing commitment to these set of values. Values are not intellectual or passive in an organization with strong cultures. These values must be perceived to be authentic and consistently applied and durable. The values of most successful organizations are admired by employees and their customers. Companies with healthy cultures understand that you cannot force-feed values to people, and the best way to develop the company values is to allow the people who will be following them to make them themselves. This then creates this is how we do things around here, or this is how things are done. So to do this, to create your company values, I suggest allowing the whole company to participate in this exercise and allow everyone to share their ideas of what is important for them in order for them to work together in a productive and respectful way. So before you start, make sure you provide the group an understanding of your core business and what sets you apart, as we discovered before, as we want to align these 2 parts to our company values that we are going to create. So now I'd like to provide you a real-life example of the values that were created at a client of mine that I assisted with about 4 years ago. And as a group, they decided that, number 1, they would listen and show respect for all others' views. Secondly, they decided that we would discuss the issue and not the person. They also decided that they would always encourage others to participate, and they would praise each other and not be critical. And they also decided that they will always follow through with their commitments and assignments, and if they are not able to get an assignment done on time, they will notify the person that needs to know. So 4 years later, I'm happy to say that these values are still in place with this client, and they have worked to bring about strong relationships and have helped make this business successful. So now that we've talked about how to create your culture, let's talk about how you can sustain it, and how you can allow your culture to work for you long term and make sure that it's enduring and allows you to be successful. So the first thing that you can do as a company and also as an individual, we also have the power to take action ourselves and demonstrate the behaviors and the qualities ourselves. It's not just the company that's responsible and the managers that are responsible for sustaining the unique culture that we want, but we can all do this, and we all have the power to do this every day. So number 1, we always want to empower our people. Employees want to say on what goes on around them, and they want to be communicated with and listened to. They want to have their opinions considered, and they want to participate in the decisions that will affect them. They want to be able to use their education and experiences and call something their own. So we want to allow them to have a say in how they will do their work and also a say in the direction of the company. Next, we want to be a role model. It's important for all of us to demonstrate the company values ourselves first. If we want caring, cooperative people who are involved, we must take the first step and demonstrate it for all others. Next, we want to always seek input from a broad spectrum of employees. Without employee input, we'll find it very difficult to get anyone's buy-in with any type of project or initiative that we have. As we discussed, you cannot force this on people. It has to be something that they understand. It has to be something that they see and value and something that they want. Next, create the right environment. None of us can change someone's personality, but we have a lot of control and we can change the situations in which the work gets done. So think about how we can create an environment in which people are interacting with each other in line with the culture that we have created. Next, we want to always encourage authenticity. So in other words, take the first step and allow yourself to be vulnerable. If you make a mistake, admit it, as this shows everyone that it's okay to be wrong and make mistakes. When you do this, you'll see others follow suit, and this will also help build the strong working relationships. It's also important to make your values visible and point out examples of when people demonstrate the company values. It's always good to commit your values to print and distribute them. Create a banner and put your values on the wall for all to see. It's also important to make sure that everyone sees what the importance of company culture values are and recognize these in group settings and individually. Compliment employees and let them know that you recognize that they are in line and they are demonstrating the company values. As we know, the work that gets recognized will usually get repeated. So now that we've created our company values, it's also important to hire the people with the same values that your company has. Someone who does not believe in what your company is trying to achieve or does not treat people the same way as you do can be an infection, and their negative style can spread throughout the whole organization. And finally, stick with it. Not everything you do is going to work, but that is okay. Google and Southwest had their struggles too, but they did not let failure get in their way. With the right amount of focus and time, your company and your company's culture can provide you the same success that they have had. So that concludes our presentation, our fourth quarter webinar on creating your unique culture. I hope everyone has learned a few points and understand a few points that they can take back and apply to their own work cultures.